Part 60. Appendix 2. Survivor Quotations. During the course of the hearings, survivors provided enlightening and harrowing evidence. Below is an example of some of the quotations that came out of the inquiry. 1. The grooming gang member played a confusing dual role. He arranged girls for the men, but also acted as a protector. He bought me phones, drinks, and made me feel special. I trusted him. Later that night, after the grooming gang member attacked me, the grooming gang member found me, bought me food, and took me home. I passed out and woke to him rubbing his penis on my lips. 2. On one occasion I went there with my friend. We were given bottles of red wine. After being forced to have sex with between 15 and 20 men, my friend became violently ill from the alcohol. I took her home, to avoid her parents seeing the state she was in. My own parents called the police, but they were not interested in pursuing what had happened. 3. When the restaurant closed, he took me to where the tables were stored and we had sex. Immediately afterwards, all the restaurant workers entered the area. A grooming gang member held me down, while they each had sex with me, laughing during the assault. Later, in the car, he insulted me and called me derogatory names, blaming me for what he had forced me into. 4. On one occasion I woke to find a grooming gang member and another grooming gang member both having sex with me. Drinking became my way of coping. At school I was mocked and humiliated by peers. I would cry privately, but pretended at school that I found it funny, even making crude jokes to fit in. Even my friends believed I was consenting. 5. This was accommodation provided to the grooming gang member as temporary accommodation, as he told the council he was homeless. This flat was used to take girls for sex. We spent many nights at this flat, drinking alcohol, and playing a game called Spin the Bottle. I now believe that the men manipulated the game so that it always landed on me. I would often end up very drunk and naked. At the end of the night, the other girls would be taken home, but I would be kept back and subjected to sexual acts by the men. Around 5 a.m., I would be allowed home and would sneak into the house before my parents woke up. 6. Despite all this, the authorities treated me as though I was to blame for what was happening. I felt completely powerless, trapped between violent perpetrators and a system unwilling to protect me. 7. There was a Bangladeshi man who I had 2 children with, who was physically violent and, knocked my tooth out, stamped on my head. Lots of different things. I managed to get away from him because I think he threatened to burn my house down. 8. It was almost like they were just looking for girls to bring to this wedding celebration after everyone had gone home. 9. I heard lots of stories from Western women, where their children had been kidnapped and they'd never see them again. Western women that had been married, gone to the Middle East, their children had been taken. 10. It was all of the white girls in every home that I went to. And, I remember a man opening the back of a van and I saw maybe 15, 20 girls locked in dog cages. It looked like they were on drugs. 11. But at the age of, I think I was 16 or 17, they said to me at the sexual health clinic, and I was checked out, I was diagnosed with polycystic ovaries. And they said the chances of me ever having a child were very, very, very slim. Because of what I've been through, they said because of the chlamydia, because of the state of my ovaries, and because of the pelvic inflammatory disease, I had a very bad environment in there, basically, that it wouldn't probably hold a child. 12. I feel sick, knowing that it's still going on, that nobody's wanting to do anything about it, even now in 2026. We're still having this conversation. We're still trying to get people to talk about it. 13. They liked to take my passport, and my documents and ID, and they'd do insurance claims for car accidents through my name that I'd been in. I'd done medicals where I'd have to walk in, and claim that I had a sore neck and they would get the money for it. 14. I got beatings all the time whilst I was in the children's home. Lots and lots of beatings because I was telling the police. I was beaten to the point where I got an aneurysm. My hair fell out. If it wasn't me, it was someone else. 15. Inquiry panelist, you were 15 at this point. Grooming gang survivor, yes. The one in the picture in the leather jacket. He's the one who took my virginity. Panelist, how old was he? Survivor, about 33 at the time. 16. I have experienced retaliation and hostility within my professional role when raising concerns. I have been warned against speaking publicly and told that doing so could result in disciplinary action or dismissal. 17. I was taken into a bathroom by the girl who had brought me there, and told to shave. She then told me that we were being sold to the men for sex. I had not known this beforehand. I did not want to participate, but I was frightened, trapped, and complied out of fear. I cannot describe in detail what happened in the bedroom. I was sexually exploited and abused by an adult man. Afterwards, we were made to sleep in a small child's bed belonging to a toddler. 18. Grooming gang survivor. I disclosed directly to staff at the children's home what was happening to me, including the sexual exploitation, the repeated trips to flats, the involvement of adult men, the exchange of money, and the reasons for my rapid and dangerous weight loss. I explained that I was frightened and felt trapped. I was told words to the effect that this did not constitute trafficking, that I was over 16, and that what was happening was a matter of choice. Police were not contacted at that stage, and no immediate protective action was taken. 19. So the grooming gang member is like, "Do you want to kiss me?" And I'm like, "No, not really." He's like, "Right, okay, we can get it on." And I was like, "No." I said, "I'm on my period." That was the first thing that came to mind. I wasn't. But that was my first excuse. He's like, "Oh, it's okay, it doesn't matter." So I was like, "No, no, no," pushing him away. And he pulled my legs forward so that I was almost laid, like slouched. And he pushed me back. And he pulled my pants down, got on top of me and penetrated me. And I was saying no, I was kicking at the same time. I was 12 years old. This guy, just so I can say this clearly, was taken to trial and caught. He was put on a retrial and he walked away. He's now walking the streets. 20. They would toot the horn of the car and then a child would be taken to the front door by a staff member of the children's home. 21. Inquiry panelist. Were there any other objects that they penetrated you with? Grooming gang survivor. Coca-Cola bottles, keys for some reason. Somebody tried to put a baseball bat up there. Panelist. Do you think they were doing these things for sexual gratification? Survivor. It's about harm. They don't care. They don't care about you. They usually try doing these things after they've done the sexual bit that they wanted to do. Once they've finished, that's it. They can do what they want to you. That's how it seemed. 22. I remember the first time I was taken into the sexual health clinic by my social worker. She walked me in there and it turned out that I had chlamydia in my throat and vagina. And I'd also got gonorrhea at that time. At the same time, they also diagnosed me with genital warts. And then a few months later, I was taken back again. I was diagnosed with chlamydia again, gonorrhea again, but this time it was also a pelvic inflammatory disease. Never once did any nurse or doctor question any of that. 23. There was a circle of Pakistani nationals. They were pointing to the children as if they were choosing them. 24. Inquiry panelist. When you were picked, what happened? Survivor. The male staff at the children's home would keep taking the children to the arcade and done up in pretty clothing. Panelist. So are you saying that the staff at the home were selling you to these foreign men? Survivor. Yes, it very much looked like it. Something was being set up. They knew the names of the children. They were all hanging around in back-to-back taxis. 25. Yes, loads of times. They used to, like, tell me things about the good angel and the bad angel that I've been, like, kind of possessed. And they've got to punish me to get the badness out of me. That's why they have to sexually abuse me and do all this stuff to me, to get the badness out of me. I've got to be punished. Yeah, and it was just all kind of stuff like that. The words they say to you. You're Gora, like white trash and white skin. 26. When I was 15, they trafficked me to Birmingham. I walked into the bathroom in the flat and there was a dead girl in the bath. 27. I was told by a female gang member to gain more weight. She said Somali men like big women. I needed to eat more and was trying to feed me. 28. I went into the flat expecting a house party. Instead, I was met with a cream flat that smelled very nice, very calm environment. Pictures of children, a child, a little girl on the wall, and 6 Somali men in the lounge sitting around a coffee table chewing something. 29. I didn't want to do it. I went for a cigarette by this window, and one of the men came over to me, hand on my throat, next to the window, going, "No, you need to do it, you need to do it." And I thought, I'm going out this fucking window, if I don't do what I'm told. So, I did. 30. I've even got asked to get married to someone from Pakistan for money. You don't have to sleep with them. If you don't want to. But if you want to be with him, you can, and things like that. 31. He put a cigarette out on the baby's face. 32. I remember closing my eyes and then every now and again I'd peep and all I can remember is just seeing his face, like when someone's, really, trying to force it in. And then after he did it, I just remember being in so much pain and bleeding loads. I was really, really bleeding. 33. We were given absinthe and vodka and, a soft drink to mix with. Literally one of the strongest alcohols was given to us, and by no mistake. It was to exploit us in some of the most horrendous ways possible that a child could be. 34. I grew up in a middle-class house with two parents that had been married for a considerable time, and I think that's quite important because most of the time the idea is that grooming gang victims are in care or they're runaways or they're from generally lower-class backgrounds, and I say this to just defeat the presumption that it's only a vulnerable or stereotypically vulnerable girl that can be groomed. Because the perpetrators are insidious and they'll target anyone, they will find weakness or vulnerability anywhere. 35. It happened in summer 2017. I was about 14 when I first met the second group of perpetrators. I met them through another friend who was being actively groomed by them, very severely. The first time we met them was in a park, which is now a massive hotspot for child sexual exploitation. It's happened to hundreds of girls there now. 36. They said they were going to attack my friend's house, and she had two little siblings and her mum was quite vulnerable as well. So for her it was a massive thing. Oh my god, I've got to go because this is going to happen if I don't. And it's the type of thing that, a child would believe, but it's probably something they would have done. They were absolutely insane and they were known for violence against women. 37. It was actually quite a brutal sexual assault. He dug his fingernails into me, and to me it seemed there was no actual pleasure for him out of that. It was just control and actually exerting power over someone who's clearly vulnerable and showing, I have you, where I want you. 38. At the sentencing she was sat behind us, directly behind us in the public gallery. Throughout the whole sentencing, she was constantly saying, fucking liars, lying white bitches. She was a white woman herself who I imagine may have been groomed and has obviously now married into the family, shouting obscenities at us. She said to me that God will be the witness for what happens to me. 39. The police didn't do anything last time. I told them that it was essentially forced, and they smirked at me in my own home and left. So there was no evidence that they were going to do anything different, that they were going to actually support us. 40. I want the institutions to say, you know what, we hold our hands up. We believe you and we're sorry. I gave up getting justice a long time ago, but just for it to be recognized and believed, that's all I want. When you're being told that you're a liar for such a long time, you begin to believe it, I suppose. I just want someone to say, do you know what? We messed up, we failed in our duty to protect you, and we're sorry, and we're going to learn from this. 41. One of the assaults that actually happened to my friend, she was in that house, and she was forced into it by a 24-year-old woman who said, go in the room with him and have sex with him now. Go and fucking do it. And I remember her scream so loudly, come running back in half-dressed, and saying that she was bleeding and in pain. 42. The worst people that exist in this situation, apart from the perpetrators of that horrendous abuse, are the people that sat in those positions within those authorities, that had every opportunity to do something about it, and chose not to. And when you do that over several decades, then it results in situations like this. And that's how that has thrived. And that is how that culture has. It's how it was born, it's how it's thrived, it's how it's surviving, and it's how it will continue. 43. It started when I was 13. I was raped by probably about 700 different men over the 3 years. 44. Inquiry panelist. Did the NHS play a part and were you able to talk to them? Grooming gang survivor. I went when I was 13 with chlamydia, and then I got genital herpes, and then I had a miscarriage. And that was all between 13 and 15. So they knew something was going on. I did go once, and I explained to the doctor, because I was like, can you give me some antidepressants or something? And the doctor said, well, I don't think that's a warrant enough to give you those when you're too young. The NHS is complicit. 45. Grooming gang survivor. The gangs are untouchable. They are, because nobody wants to admit that there's a problem, because they don't want to be deemed as racist. And also because it goes higher up and they don't want it to be blown open. 46. They said they wanted to take me back to meet their families. So luckily I didn't have a passport, otherwise, I might not be sat here right now. 47. Inquiry panelist. The imams who run the mosque, do you think they're aware? Grooming gang survivor. They know 100%, because my friend was, when she was 15, she was sleeping with a guy who was older. She had a baby by him, and his dad was an imam. His dad knew, and he got his son married and said that he wasn't allowed to see the child. They look after their own community. 48. I remember being with my friend, and she lived in a children's home. And they would come and pick us up from outside, and then the care home would ring the police and obviously tell them. And then the police would come out, and they would call us prostitutes. I don't think the services, even down to social services, I don't think they really cared. I think that they had the same thought as most other people, that we were prostitutes and that we wanted it. I don't think they saw it how it really was, that it was grooming and sexual assault. They blamed us for it. It was our choice. 49. It wasn't just sexual abuse. It was violence as well. I've had a gun held to my head. I've been beaten so that I'm literally covered, head to toe in bruises. That was when I was spiked, when I was drugged. I've had a knife at my throat because he wanted me to sort out 10, 15 cars full of men. I'd get kidnapped. I don't think people realize, I think they think it's sexual abuse, but it was torture as well. I'd be kidnapped, and I'd be locked in a room and I'd be beaten. I'd be told if I don't do this, I'm not going to go home. So it was a lot more than just sexual abuse. 50. I was beaten black and blue, sexually assaulted, not only sexually penetrated with their body parts themselves, but with objects as well. There was an incident. I was taken to hospital. It's not even in my medical records. I was taken to A&E because my vagina was split open from a glass bottle. 51. I just want it to stop and not happen to any other children and for people to actually act and do something and stop being so scared. 52. Inquiry panelist. How many different men do you think molested you over that period when you were 16? Grooming gang survivor. About 100. Panelist. When you were 16 years old. Survivor. Yeah. 53. Grooming gang survivor. It was just getting like more and more. Non-stop phone calls. Everyone knew who I was. I couldn't walk down the street without cars pulling up and just saying, "Get in now." Inquiry panelist. And what would happen when you'd get into a car? Survivor. They'd just take us off to a house or wherever and that's when all the bad stuff would happen. Panelist. They'd sexually abuse you. Survivor. Yeah, they wouldn't take no for an answer. It was on a daily basis. It was like, you'd be in one car, and then you'd get a phone call, "You'd better come and meet me now." So you'd get out of that one car, you'd be in the next car, so it was about 10 in one night. 54. Inquiry panelist. You said around 100 men. What races were there? Grooming gang survivor. Mainly Pakistani. Panelist. Were there any white men? Survivor. No. Panelist. Did they ever speak about religion? Survivor. Yes, loads of times. They used to, like tell me things about the good angel and the bad angel that I've been, like kind of possessed. And they've got to punish me to get the badness out of me. That's why they have to sexually abuse me and do all this stuff to me, to get the badness out of me. I've got to be punished. Yeah, and it was just all kind of stuff like that. The words they say to you. You're Gora, like white trash and white skin. 55. The taxis would drop a girl off, they'd go in the shop. That taxi would leave, clear the job, then another taxi would pull up. Girls are half drunk, they're just getting in a taxi thinking it's the same one, and then they're being took to places to get molested. And there's a chat, there was a group chat for all the drivers. So they were all communicating with each other, mainly Muslim taxi drivers. 56. I was actually married to an Asian guy, and fully converted, through the imam. The imam came to my house. I was fully converted. 57. I heard the police officer's radio go, and I heard them say that they were taking my daughter to Muhammad's brother's address. I begged them not to take her there. I was like, there, the people that are doing this to her, you cannot take her there. They're going to kill her, because I did believe they were going to. And they didn't listen to me, they did take her there, and like I said, she was abused there by them, by Muhammad. 58. I remember closing my eyes and then every now and again I'd peep and all I can remember is just seeing his face, like when someone's, really, trying to force it in. And then after he did it, I just remember being in so much pain and bleeding loads. I was really, really bleeding. 59. Mother of grooming gang survivor. We've had to firebomb-proof our letterbox because we've had threats to have the house burnt down. She's had threats to get her throat slashed. I've had threats to get my throat slashed. This has been continuous for 4 years, constantly. 60. Father of grooming gang survivor. She'd already been sexually assaulted at this point by a gang, and most of the gang members went to her school.